Hi guys, welcome to Game World. Today's video is very special because in today's video I am going to show you top 10 open world games for low-end PC that you probably don't know. Before get started, please like the video and subscribe the channel for more content. Let's get started after the intro. Far Cry 3 is a 2012 first-person shooter game. It is the third main installment in the Far Cry series. The game takes place on the fictional Rook Islands. Rook Islands is an open world in which players can explore freely. Gameplay focuses on combat and exploration. Players can use a variety of weapons to defeat human enemies and hostile wildlife, and the game features elements found in role-playing games such as skill trees and experience. After a vacation goes awry, protagonist Jason Brody must save his friends, who have been kidnapped by pirates, and escape from the island and its unhinged inhabitants. Jason can travel using a variety of vehicles. Later in the game, players will find a wingsuit that Jason can wear. Jason will encounter different friendly settlements and complete side missions, including hunting quests and assassination missions where he can shop for weapons and materials. Rook Islands is inhabited by a wide variety of wildlife including jaguars and sharks, and the game's artificial intelligence enables the wildlife to interact with each other to simulate a realistic ecosystem. The game was announced in June 2011, and Ubisoft promoted the game with various companion apps, web series and crossover. It was released for Microsoft Windows in November 2012. The game received critical acclaim upon release, with praise directed at its characters, world design, progression, and gameplay, though its narrative and multiplayer modes received criticism. It was nominated for multiple year-end accolades including Game of the Year and Best Shooter awards by several gaming publications. Assassin's Creed Brotherhood is a 2010 action-adventure video game. It is the third major installment in the Assassin's Creed series, and a direct sequel to 2009's Assassin's Creed II. The game was released on Microsoft Windows in March 2011. The plot follows the centuries-old struggle between the assassins, who fight for peace with free will, and the Templars, who desire the same but through control. The main story takes place immediately after the plot of Assassin's Creed II, featuring assassin 𝐎𝐸𝐸 da Firenze in 16th century Italy and his quest to restore the assassin order and destroy his enemies, the Borgia family. Assassin's Creed Brotherhood is set in an open world and presented from the third-person perspective with a primary focus on using Desmond and 𝐎𝐸𝐸's combat and stealth abilities to eliminate targets and explore the environment. 𝐎𝐸𝐸 can freely explore 16th century Rome to complete side missions away from the primary storyline. The game introduced a multiplayer component to the series, portrayed as a Templar training program. It won multiple awards including a BAFTA award for Best Action Game. Mafia II is a 2010 action-adventure game developed by 𝐎𝐸𝐸 and published by 2K Games. The game is set in the 1940s, early 1950s era of Empire Bay, a fictional city based on New York City, Chicago, San Francisco, Los Angeles, Boston, and Detroit. There are 50 vehicles in the game as well as licensed music from the era. Depending on the weather during the course of the game, vehicles are handled differently. For example, during the early chapters in winter, vehicles are more likely to slip on the road due to the ice. Many firearms from the previous game return, such as the Thompson submachine gun and Colt 1911, as well as a pump-action shotgun. New World War II era weapons, the MG42 and the Beretta Model 38, also appear in the game. Interacting with objects in the environment involves two action buttons, a standard action and a violent action. For example, when stealing a car, the player may choose to either pick its lock or break the window glass, used in context-sensitive situations. A map is included as in the original Mafia game, but the checkpoint system has been completely overhauled. Further explanation needed. New controls include a cover system that allows the player to take cover behind objects and shoot enemies, rather than just entering an arbitrary crouch pose behind them. This feature provides tactical support against enemies, and has become a crucial technique of the genre. Sniper Ghost Warrior 2 is a shooter video game developed and published by City Interactive for Microsoft Windows. Sniper Ghost Warrior 2 is a tactical shooter that employs stealth, hand-to-hand assassinations and titular sniping techniques. Gameplay features realistic bullet physics that factors distance, wind, and bullet drop when sniping targets. The game starts with player taking control of U.S. Marine Captain Cole Anderson, in the Philippines, with CIA Special Agent Diaz making their way to an old Russian radar post to destroy it while working on a tip that some mercenaries had assembled there to broker a deal for a biological weapon. Tom Clancy's Ghost Recon, Future Soldier is a third-person tactical shooter video game developed by Ubisoft. The game is a third-person cover-based shooter. Some cover can be partially destroyed, forcing players to seek other hiding spots. While taking cover, players can be suppressed by machine gun fire, which takes the effect of narrowing and shaking the player's field of vision, making it harder to return fire. A new feature in the series is adaptive camouflage, which allows the ghosts to become partially invisible. In the game, it is explained that the processing power doesn't exist yet for the camouflage to keep up with quick movements, so it is only active when the player moves slowly. It's enabled automatically when the player crouches, and disengages when running, firing, or taking damage. Players can use drones that can be launched covertly and controlled remotely hovering or moving over the playing field for a limited distance. Drones can be spotted by enemies and shot, and if they take enough damage they must be recalled for repair, which occurs automatically after a short period. The drone has a camera to provide an aerial view. Targets can be marked from the drone view. Another automated element is the Warhound, used only in one single-player mission, which is a heavy walking robot, similar to Big Dog, which can be controlled by the player and fires mortar rounds and TV-guided missiles. It can be used as portable cover. Just Cause 2 is a third-person action-adventure game in which players control Rico Rodriguez, field operative of the agency, in an effort to overthrow the island dictatorship of Pano, an open world for players to explore. The game has 3 types of missions. Agency missions advance the story and are the game's main campaign. The game's open world is free for players to explore when they are not on missions. Pano is described as an area of about 1,000 square kilometers. There are a variety of landscapes, including deserts, mountains and jungles, and over 300 settlements. The settlements contain government properties, which can be destroyed, and unlockables such as cash stashes and weapon, vehicle, and armor parts. Finding all the collectibles and destroying all the government properties will help players liberate a settlement and receive chaos points. Players can use a variety of weapons to fight enemies. The game features a large arsenal of weapons, from two-handed pistols to rocket launchers, and a variety of sea, land, and air vehicles. Players can drive them, jump on top of them or hide in front of them, while they are moving and hijack enemy vehicles. Just Cause 2 includes a grappling hook enabling players to tether objects together. In a high-speed vehicle chase, a player can use the grappling hook to attach the pursuit vehicle to the ground, forcing it to stop and often damaging it by flipping. Players can also tether 2 enemies together. The grappling hook allows a player to pull himself, hold onto objects such as walls or helicopters and pull enemies towards Rico. The player has a parachute, which is always ready to be deployed even if it was already deployed moments earlier. This can be combined with the grappling hook as quick transport, with players slingshooting themselves into the air. Far Cry 2 is a 2008 first-person shooter game developed by Ubisoft Montreal and published by Ubisoft. It is the second installment of the main Far Cry series. Far Cry 2 is the true sequel to Far Cry, however the sequel has very few noticeable similarities to the original game. Instead, it features completely new characters and setting, as well as a new style of gameplay that allows the player greater freedom to explore different African landscapes such as deserts, jungles, and savannas. The game takes place in a modern-day Central African nation during civil war. The player takes control of a mercenary on a lengthy journey to locate and assassinate the Jackal, a notorious arms dealer. The game has realistic features such as weapon degradation and the dynamic weather system. The player needs to hold a physical map and use a handheld navigation system, which highly resembles a military-type GPS, to get around, but they are automatically updated as the player travels through the environment. The player is able to tag certain objects and locations such as cars, sniper towers, ammo pickups and buildings, so that they are able to monitor them on their map. When vehicles are damaged, the player must perform a short repair animation. Every 30 to 40 minutes in real time, the player must take a pill in order to combat the blinding and potentially deadly effects of the illness. The Saboteur is a 2009 open-world action-adventure video game set during World War II in German-occupied France. The player can explore Nazi-occupied Paris, some of the French countryside and parts of Germany. Color is a key element in the gameplay. Areas which are heavily controlled by the Nazis are represented in black and white, with the exception of the characters' irises, city lights, blood and blue symbols of the French resistance, and various German symbols, which are bright red and complete with swastikas. In these areas, German soldiers are present in large numbers, making it far more likely that 𝐎𝐸𝐸 will be detected in his rebellious activities. To inspire the district again, players must weaken the German forces occupying the area. In doing so, that district's citizens regain their hope, visually represented by the area becoming vibrant and full of color. Germans in these areas will not be completely evicted, but 𝐎𝐸𝐸 has a higher chance of escaping them since they will no longer be so ubiquitous, and will primarily be centered on military bases, barracks, checkpoints, HQs and other strategically important sites. In addition, the French people will play an active role in the struggle for colored zones. For example, if 𝐎𝐸𝐸 gets into a fight with German soldiers in a colored area, allies like the French resistance, the Maquis and even passing French civilians will intervene against the occupiers. The player can buy weapons, ammunition, explosives, maps and other items from several black market merchants. Once 𝐎𝐸𝐸 has purchased a weapon from the dealers, he can equip himself with that weapon at any time. Mirror's Edge is an open-world parkour game developed by DICE and published by Electronic Arts. It was released for Microsoft Windows in 2009. The game follows the story of Faith Connors, an underground parkour courier who transmits messages while evading government surveillance. To progress through the game, the player must control Faith from a first-person perspective and complete a series of levels that involve performing a linear sequence of acrobatic maneuvers. These include jumping between rooftops, running across walls, climbing pipes, walking along ledges, sliding down zip lines, and getting past opponents controlled by the game's artificial intelligence. Faith's arms, legs, and torso are prominent, and their visibility is used to convey her movement and interactions with the environment. Her momentum is an important aspect of the gameplay, as preserving it through multiple obstacles allows the player to run faster, jump farther, and climb higher. To help players chain moves seamlessly, the game employs a navigation system, called Runner Vision, which turns certain objects in a bold red color as Faith approaches them, allowing the player to instantly recognize paths and escape routes. Grand Theft Auto San Andreas is a 2004 action-adventure game. It is the 7th title in the Grand Theft Auto series. The game's set within an open-world environment that players can explore and interact. Grand Theft Auto San Andreas is an action-adventure game with role-playing and stealth elements. The core gameplay consists of elements of third-person shooter and driving games, affording the player a large, open-world environment in which to move around. On foot, the player's character is capable of walking, running, sprinting, swimming, climbing, and jumping, as well as using weapons and various forms of hand-to-hand combat. The player can operate a variety of vehicles. There are 212 different vehicles in the game. New additions include bicycles, a combined harvester, a street sweeper, a jetpack, and trailers. There are many new features in the game such as gang wars, car modification, burglary, and multiplayer.